So the reason we are conducting this session is that we got a great opportunity that John is with us, and he teaches marketing at University of Worcester, which is located in near Birmingham in UK, and it's called Heart of England.
It's in the heart of England.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
So what happens is when some students comes to us, they always inquire about what will happen if we do MBA. Should we do MBA or should we do international management? Should we do supply chain management? Should we do project management? So there are various courses. So we will take your questions, but before your questions, I'll ask few questions, so which I always get from the students. Well, since I've been counseling students for almost 7-8 years now, and usually the question is always surrounded with the placements and jobs and
Yep.
what career opportunities will have. And I always ask students to not look for career opportunities beforehand, rather look at the modules and see if you really want to learn that. If you are really interested in those modules, then take that subject. It doesn't matter if it will pay you high or low, because if you master those subjects, eventually you will get paid. So it's always about learning first and then thinking about jobs. So John, the first question is, what do you think about the education in UK, and how do you develop the MBA and BBA programs, and how does it really benefit students, and what should they really expect from that degree, either it's UG or PG?
Okay, yes, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for making me very welcome on one of my return visits to India. It's always good to be back. So when it comes to MBAs, the MBA sits alongside MSCs. So what you've got an MBA or you've got MSc. An MSc can be in specialist areas. As Amar was saying, you could have MSc Human Resource Management, Logistics and Supply Chain Management, Marketing, Finance, so lots and lots of specialist areas. So an MSc and MBA are what we call in the UK a level 7 qualification. We interuse the term PG and Masters. Sometimes we call it PG for postgraduate, sometimes we call it Masters. In the UK, students tend to do their bachelor programme, their undergraduate programme, which is either a 3-year degree or 4-year, including a sandwich year, a placement year. Following their undergraduate degree, students can then progress to a postgraduate qualification like MBA or one of the specialist MSCs. Now, people always ask me what's the difference between an MBA and an MSc. Well, from a marketing perspective, some markets prefer MBA, some markets prefer MSc. We have, when we visit the China market, they prefer an MSc, whereas India prefers an MBA. So when you're looking at something like an MSc International Management and an MBA, they're very, very similar. They've just got different titles. Our MBAs in the UK and our MSCs are 1 year in duration. In some countries, they're 2 years. I'm not saying that ours must be easier or even harder because it's 1 year. It's just the way the UK system works. So it's a 1 year qualification. And on some of the MBAs, not all MBAs, it depends on which university you pick, there's also an option to do an internship. Now, what students do is they would do their taught modules, which would take about 12 months. Then they go on internship. They then come back to finish off their dissertation or project or thesis. Again, that's another word that's used, either project, dissertation or thesis. So if they go on internship, it tends to be unpaid, but what you're doing is you're getting good experience and you're building up your CV. So again, internships work very well. And also it's very appreciated by the companies that you work for, because what they've got is they've got a fresh pair of eyes looking at maybe some problems that they've got. And of course, what international students can bring is an international perspective to it. Sometimes we can get too focused on the way we've always done it, and it's always good to get like an outsider's view on how to do the business. So that's the MBAs and the MSCs. Now, the MBA, you can also get MBAs which also specialise. So you might get an MBA Finance or an MBA Marketing or MBA Human Resource Management. So as well as being a general qualification, it is also possible to get specialisms within the MBA. One of the modules that MBA should have, which MSCs don't necessarily have, is leadership, because a manager of the future moving forward is going to need leadership qualities. So an MBA will equip you with that.
Great. And what about undergraduation? Like if you talk about UG, there are different courses which University of Worcester offers.
Yes.
And how do you see that when students, especially from India, when they come, what difficulties do they face? Because you have first-hand experience of trying to motivate them and get them into the UK education system.
Yes, that's right.
And
Yes.
so I want to know about that what difficulties they face and how university manages to help them.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, actually, because the way we do it in the UK, I'll give an example. My title is Senior Lecturer in Marketing. I have other titles, but I'm Senior Lecturer in Marketing. So I'm basically a teacher. What we don't do is we don't lecture. In some countries, now I'm not saying what's right and what's wrong, it's just that it's done in different ways in different countries. You might get the professor who will stand at the front of the class and lecture to the class. In the UK, we don't tend to do that. A typical lesson for us could be that I might talk for 10 minutes with some slides, PowerPoint slides, and then the students will get to do some examples, case studies, activities. We'll then get some feedback discussion. I might then talk for 10 more minutes, feedback discussion on another set of activities. So that tends to be the way the lesson goes. That's fairly typical of what a school lesson might be in the UK, where it's all about you learn by doing, not by somebody at the front telling you. And that's a big jump for Indian students when they come to the UK. So the students that we see onto our undergraduate program, they've just completed their 12th. So they're used to a certain style in the Indian high schools, and then they're faced with this other style in the UK. So what we do is we make sure there's plenty of support built in. So the university have experts in study skills who are available for all of the students to access, not just the Indian student, all of the students. When I say all of the students, I mean the international and the UK students as well, so they can all access the support services. And we find that works. I won't hide this, but I think it's a bit of a shock when the students get there, first couple of weeks, but they're so resilient. They settle down so quickly. They're watching what the others are doing. And, if you give it, a semester, and you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a UK student and an Indian student when it comes to their work. So they do adapt very quickly. Onto the courses, again, a little bit like on the postgraduate, you can either do fairly general undergraduate degrees like business management, or you can specialise. So I've got a marketing background, so you could do degrees in marketing, degrees in finance, degrees in human resource management. So lots of different specialities. At Worcester, what we have is we've got what we call a common first year. So what that means is that all of our students do the same first year modules. That's a point, actually. We call them modules. You might call them courses. So they do the same modules in year one. That means they can either stay with the course that they enrolled in, or they can change over. For example, if they came on business management and they enjoyed their marketing, they could then move to business and marketing in year two. So that works very well. There is an exception to that, and I must always say this, and that's accounting and finance. Accounting and finance in the UK, the degrees, it's all about chasing the exemptions. The big accounting bodies in the UK are CIMA, which I know is very well known in India, ACCA, and the Chartered Institute of Accountants. So with our accounting and finance degrees, it's a very different degree because they're always chasing the exemptions from the professional bodies. Because if you want to be an accountant, it doesn't stop, I'm afraid, after your degree. You have to do many more exams. But with our degree, you have to do fewer exams than if you started at the very beginning. So I think in choosing a degree, if you finish your 12th and you've not really made your mind up which aspect of business you're going into, then business management might be the best way forward. And then that gives you, in year one, it gives you a feel for all of the different disciplines. And as you move into year two, you might doing all the little, all the different topics that might suit you, or you might think, right, I like that particular area, so I can then specialise in it. The other thing that in the UK is very popular is what we call a sandwich course. A sandwich course is where you do 2 years and then you do 1 year sandwich, a placement. Again, you might call those internships. On our undergraduate program, we call them placements. There is a difference, and I'll tell you why in a second. So students can do 2 years in class, then they can do 1 year placement. And that placement is for, 1 year. It gives them lots and lots of valuable experience from the employers. They then come back and for their final year. And the placements tend to be paid. That tends to be the way it works in the UK, as opposed to at master's level where it is an internship and it is unpaid. So we try and get as many students as possible to go out on placement because it gives them valuable work experience. And as a visiting tutor, I have seen many, many times where the student who's been on placement, they've come back for their final year and they've got a graduate job with the company they were on placement with.